Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Brian Dewhurst and Philip Ramsey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Life Project, where I am your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I am Brian Dewhurst.
Thank you for tuning in. We got a fun episode for you today. We have the one and only Arron Cramer with us, and we are going to talk about student loans, college planning, and how to do it uncommonly. Holy buckets.
Hold on tight to your seat.
Hold on to your bra straps, as we say in our family. It's going to get wild. It's going to get crazy. Arron, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're going to dive into something that is a huge problem. It might not feel like that because all these different ways that they're, deferring the payments and interest.
Man. Yeah, we can get into that too, yeah.
But what we really wanted to do is empower you with some education on there is some quirky ways, some uncommon ways that you can not only plan for your own student loans, but maybe save some money in the process, which sounds really exciting.
Yeah, anytime we save money, right?
Brian, first thought, when I say college, what is your first thought?
Don't go into debt.
I like
Don't go into debt.
Okay. All right. And honestly, your story is a little different than my story, but you didn't go into debt in college. Is that right?
No, I definitely had student loan debt. My parents paid half from money they saved, and then I had the other half. And so that half for me was student loans. So.
Okay. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
My family did it interesting. They said, hey, Philip, we'll pay the interest while you're in college, and then you pay it afterwards. I don't know. That's what the deal is.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't accruing, but I owed everything that I was going through. It really helped me because I actually went to the classes. You know, there was only one or two classes I didn't go in college. That was basically how I graduated because all the teachers saw that I was there. Attendance was great. Tests were not. So got through. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, colleges are getting more and more expensive. And the planning that it takes for us, individual financial planners, to help families is beginning to get really interesting. Because the biggest thing that when you start doing college planning and started thinking of the FAFSA, there's a thing called the EFC, Expected Family Contribution. Everybody, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to get your own EFC, and that is what they are saying you should be paying for your son or daughter to go to college. Okay? So the game is, let's try to get our EFC as low as possible so we don't have to pay as much, right? The mainly one place that they start is your 529s. So the more money you have in your 529s increases your EFC. So it's just a very interesting conundrum that we have as planners of like trying to help people plan for college, plan it well, and so they can take their son or daughter to college. And everybody has their own kind of slant on what they should pay, what they not should pay, all that stuff. But now we're talking about you are through college, you have student loan debt, and it might be up to your eyeballs.
Yeah.
And doctors, lawyers, you name it, even like general studies, shout out to my friends, still will have a lot of student loans. And how do you now plan for it when you're going to need to go get a job, probably need to go get a car, would like to live somewhere other than your parents' basement? What do you do? I don't know how else I could set this up, but there's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So
there's a massive problem.
There totally is. And so our one and only Arron Cramer has had a designation for this exact thing. When you come out of college, you have a whole bunch of student loans. How do you do this? How in the world did you start this? And why was it such a passion of yours first going into the accreditation for that?
Yeah. Well, we'll go into like the passion portion of it. It's funny. It's complicated. I'm not like one of those people I'm like, oh my gosh, super passionate about student loans. I'm just really want to help my clients, and I'm a millennial, so guess what? We're really concerned about student loans. And I didn't really know a whole lot about them. I was blessed. I played sports, so I didn't come out with like a ton of student loans. But I found a designation. I was like, oh, I can learn about this and help people. So then with that and the power of it, it's kind of where the passion came. But yeah, there's so many ways to go about it. And I know like for us, it's interesting. We have to take a lot of exams to get into, our business, and they're not exactly easy exams.
They sure aren't.
This exam was I think was right up there with it.
Really?
And it's purely because it is so complicated and intricate. And then I tip my hat off to Heather and Jance that put on the certification, because to get through the test, it's just, you have to solve problems. It's not actually like facts and stuff like you're doing solving scenarios, but it is intricate, complicated. And I do believe, I'm a little biased, but I do believe, and I can prove it, that planners need to have this knowledge because it's complicated and it goes into your finances huge.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to paint the picture, paint it done here. And at the end of the day, we just did a plan for he was a chiropractor and she was a physical therapist.
Yep.
And we got all the information, and then Arron just presented a plan for them. And at the end, I know this because I was pretty keen on it, they were going to not pay $407,000, I thought. Was it not that number?
Yeah, between the two of them.
Between the two of them, they were going to forgive, quote unquote, I don't know if that's the right word, $407,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
pretty big deal.
Saves them like $170,000 in payments. It's over $100,000, $1,000 because the interest occurred.
Yep.
And so the amount that was getting forgiven was in the 400,000s, but the payment difference of what they would have to pay if they just did your standard 10-year payment to then going on a good program that fits them best, and then going out to 20 years, they're going to save over $100,000.
It wasn't 400, it was 100.
Well, that's how much is getting forgiven in student loans, but the payment of what's going to come out of their pocket over a 20-year span to a 10-year span is going to be over six figures.
Okay. So that does plan. So there is reasons to really think about this in a different light. So let me start by saying this so people can say, this is either me or this is not me. How much money do you should you be thinking, I have this amount in my student loans, I should go talk to Arron Cramer?
Yeah. So this is a good rule of thumb here. It's very intricate but when you're just thinking about it, one, it has to be federal student loans. Private student loans are just like any kind of other loan. There's a few things in there you can do, but they're there, and we'll get into that. But for federal loans, look at how much you make a year and then put it up against your student loans. If what you make is equal to or less than of your student loans, then it's time to talk.
Okay. So Brian, what did you just hear Arron say? Just so I can clarify.
I heard that if your monthly payment is high relative to your income, you need to talk to Arron.
Okay. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, so if let's just hypothetically, if I make $60,000 a year, and if I have $60,000 in student loans, that's when we start looking at finding ways to make it more affordable.
Gotcha.
If it's
that
over,
makes sense to me. Sorry.
Yeah,
there it is.
So, but if I make $60,000 and I have $30,000 in student loans, I hate to tell you, this isn't gonna this road for you.
Okay. All right. So that paints the picture of the patient type or client type that we're talking about, and it also doesn't. And then it goes to okay, then how do you do this? And what kind of quirks do you know that I don't know that could save me over $100,000 of not paying these student loans back?
So this gets really fun. So so this is a big thing. There is 5 programs for income-based payment plans. You got to look at every single one of them. You got to see when your first loan was taken out, the date, and then your last loan to see what you qualify for. And then, or do you have graduate loans? Do you have just undergrad loans? These also play a part. And then, are you a public servant? That plays a part. But when we divide all, dig all into all that, see what it is, then we get you on an income-based payment plan.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Income-based payment plan. Yeah. What in the world?
So we're going to base this off your income. So we whatever your income is, and that's where a lot of things get fun. We'll put that to the next subject, but like topic that we go over. But like, so if you make 60,000,
Okay.
all right, so we take that. Now we can take the poverty line,
Okay.
you know, whatever that is, and then depending on how many dependents you have, you take that times 1.5, depending on what program you're in. The ICR program, you just take it by 1.
Okay.
So it doesn't make as much difference. You subtract that, and then from that gives you your income. And now, depending on what program you're in, if like you're in the pay as you earn or revised pay as you earn or the IBR or no, the new IBR,
Wow.
that's 10%.
So there's like different ways that you can pay back your student loans, and that's what you're commenting on. Which loan?
What program do you want to get into?
What does program mean? Like what program or what?
So you got income-based payment plan, right?
Okay.
That's the big shell. From there, we got branches of
Programs.
So do we do the income-based repayment, or do we do the new? Can we qualify for the new income-based repayment?
And is this from the government brings these things out?
Yeah, the government created all these.
Ah. Okay.
Which, if you know anything about the government, nothing's easy.
Brian knows more than I do.
Yeah. So
No, and I think that's a great point. Just to sorry to intersect that. A lot of this stuff now, like when Philip and I were going through, you had private student loans with an actual bank, and now it's like you're on the hook with the IRS. And so it's just it just seems like the stakes are higher now with student loans, and the amounts are just way bigger.
When they can garnish your wages, garnishing your wages does seem like the stakes are higher.
Yeah. If you don't pay on your federal student loans, they will take your wages. They can get after you.
I want to say this because it's usually something that Brian would say, but I feel like I should say it. Just makes you think that I'm smart. The biggest asset that the federal government owns is what?
Student loans.
Student loans. What?
Yeah. So for all of our listeners out there, this is not political at all, but it's just think about it as a business standpoint. If we have printed a lot of money because we've needed to, we had to give people money during the pandemic and things like that, but we're in a lot of debt. Like America cannot afford to
forgive much of this
when it's their number one income. It's the biggest asset in their portfolio. So,
man, I mean, it's just bananas. Bananas.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say what they're going to do. I'm clearly don't think politicians are the smartest people in the world. So maybe they'll do it, but hopefully they will. They'll help make a lot of people happy. And
then sometimes here's what I would say. Sometimes depending on how you fall in this of I think they're going to forgive it. I think they're not. For me and my personality, having the control of being able to have a plan to pay them off feels better than I'm just going to sit back and wait.
Yeah.
I'm just not that guy. Now there are people that have that personality. To each their own.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd rather have a plan. Give me the plan. Let me see what program I'm in, and then rock and roll. So you're talking about these different programs. You're kind of getting in the weeds, which that's great.
Yeah.
But can you change programs, or once you start with that program, by golly, you finish it?
You gotta be careful of changing it because sometimes changing it can cause your timeline to change. So if we're going down this route, so if we decide you know what, I have $100,000 in student loans, I make $40,000 a year. I can't afford this. It's fine. Government has done good programs. So with that sense, even you guys were in college. So give it to Obama. Obama's party put in some good ones. So you pay on it for 20 years, they go away. So whatever's left, it's that case that we're talking about. They don't have $400,000 in student loans right now. By the time they get done, they will because of interest and things like that.
Right.
They'll go away. After the end of 20 years, it all goes away.
So 240 payments.
Yep.
240 months.
If you're not a public servant, yes.
Okay. So if you're a public servant, changes the deal.
120 payments.
10 years.
Yep. Now, if you're a public servant, the beauty of that is when all that money goes away, it's not taxed.
Oh.
So if you're doing the 20-year, 25-year, those are the two timelines, when it gets forgiven,
you'll get taxed on that.
Yeah. So
the forgiven part.
The forgiven part. It's going to be looked at as 1099 income.
Whoa, baby.
So you got to save up for that.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Keep going. Sorry. I have all these questions that I just...
Oh, yeah. So my biggest thing is hopefully this helps, but I mean, this is the thing that there's a lot of programs out there. You got to make sure you're on it. Like, you got to be careful about things though, because this is how intricate it is. Like, maybe your wife or your spouse makes a lot more money than you do. And so now if we're going off your household income, well, dang, maybe we need to file separate as a household. But this is where it becomes very important to work with a financial planner in this, because yes, it may look on paper for your payment to look a lot smaller, file separate, but how do taxes look? What do you lose on your taxes? And you got then you got to compare that.
Right. You can't just compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
There's so many other variables that can really change.
I had a case where the wife makes a lot more money than the husband. The husband has all the student loans. It's like, oh, if we file separate, then his payment would be about $200 to $300 cheaper a month.
Okay.
I was like, sweet.
Right.
Let's do this. Hold on. We're going to go talk to the tax expert. So talk to the tax expert. Hey, how much would they save on this? Or lose on tax credits and things like that and pay that much more in taxes by filing separate. It came out to be like $270 a month. So it's like, you're only saving $20 for all the,
right.
It didn't come out to be a savings. Plus you had to pay the accountant's fee in there.
Oh yeah. Twice.
And so it's like, okay, well, now it doesn't work.
Go back to the married file jointly.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So there's that nuance, but also let's say it does work out for you, though. It does make sense. You're okay. Now you can't contribute to a Roth IRA
if you do joint, or if you do single
filing separate. You get penalized on everything you contributed at that point. So, you also need to look at that.
So there's some variables that really impact.
They got to look into. But
solution.
Okay. Yeah. And then the one I want to make sure we talk about before we get into the other stuff is if you want to start a business.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, this is since we're uncommon here,
we kind of like that.
Yeah, if you are one of those people,
you have my attention.
Yeah. If you are like, I got to get my student loans knocked out first. I got too much student loan debt. Hold on, who can play with their income the most than business owners?
Yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. You picking up what we're throwing down over there, Brian?
I am picking it up.
Yeah.
Reminds me of one of the podcasts we did with Stacy and Ian Nelson Johnson, and that was kind of their mentality too. And we met them of in 10 years, once I get through all these student loans, then I'll go out on my own. And we flipped that script, and it's had a really transformational impact on their life and their patience and their business. And so, yeah,
totally. It was Ian and Christina. Actually,
what did I say?
Stacy, Ian and Stacy.
Sorry.
I get why you'd say that because we have clients, Ian and Stacy. We just hung out with Stacy. So,
but
anyway,
yeah, because then so people don't realize that you just have to give yourself a reasonable salary, as a business owner. But then you can give yourself your little bonuses, things like that.
Does dividends play a factor in your calculation over there?
Dividends,
like dividends from your business.
Like S corp distributions or
distributions. Yeah,
I think distribution is probably the better word, but yeah,
not on S corp. No, it's your salary.
Oh wow.
So that's what I'm saying. And then I know we had a case study in our coursework. When I took the course, there was a husband and wife.
Yeah,
that was business owners, and the husband had taken out the student loans for their children.
Okay.
Well, so then. Through this is where it gets tricky. Parents that have student loans for their children, that's a whole different case. It gets really messy. We can get into that, but what they ended up doing is filing separate. It made more sense to file separate because they were just them. Well, then they only paid him $30,000 a year, but then they just really bumped up hers, and now he's paying very little.
Unreal.
And it really changed their retirement plan.
Oh yeah, I bet. Less money out changes your retirement plan. I'll tell you that right now. So not rocket science.
Yeah, because they still had to save for retirement, but it's oh my gosh, we got these couple $1,000 a month payment. Nope, not anymore.
Good. Okay, keep going. This is interesting.
But so I don't know what questions you guys had.
Okay, let's do this because at this point, if you have student loans, you are leaning in. Let's say you make $70,000 and you have over $400,000 of student loans.
Yeah.
So tell us how they would engage with you. Like how much are we charging at Uncommon Wealth for this actual strategy?
Yeah. So if you just come to us or just come to me, just all you want from me is student loans, great. I usually charge $1,500.
Yep.
Like,
to do the plan on how do you get in the right program? What are you dealing with?
Hold your hand through that whole process and set you up to like be able to succeed going forward. So $1,500, do that. Now, please note, like I look at your situation prior.
Right.
So if we come to me and like show me your stuff, I look at it, it's like, hey, this actually probably isn't a good route for you to go. I'm not charging you.
Right.
So I'm only charging you if it's a good idea. But then,
and then every year you'll meet with them to make sure that that's good, right?
If they want to, like, if you want to meet, then we'll talk about the yearly, like just like 1 hour meeting or whatever it is. Also to make sure, because this is the big thing, guys, your listeners out here, you have to sign up, reapply every year.
Oh, Yahtzee. That's 20 years, friends, or 10.
20 years. And we all kind of, if you've experienced student loans, these carriers are not put together.
Hot Mess Express.
Yes. So you got to apply early because you do not want to miss that date because you do not want to miss a year.
Right. If you miss a year.
So complicated. Like how, like, and I'm not trying to like oversell your services, but like, how does the average American like just negotiate this? Like, it just seems nearly impossible, you know?
I have two friends that have done a pretty good job doing it themselves, but it's still like they've missed a few things, like and big things, but they're on track. But yeah, is it
kind of set up like that? Like complicated so people don't take advantage of this? Or like, what's the reason it's so complicated? You'd think it would be a little bit easier.
Well, okay, so I'm a little bit of my theory is because the government has their hands on it.
Okay.
The government did it, and
everything with the government's a little harder.
It's just the unintended consequences of people thinking, "Oh, well, this could be a good idea," and then we got to help those people, and then we got to help those people, and it's like, well, how do people know what camp they're in? You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
how do you manage it now? Yeah. So that's student loans are complicated,
and I would say just from the cases we worked on together, Aaron, like, the layers of this puzzle, like you look at a couple just starting out, getting married, whether they own a business or not, and just trying to build wealth. When you weave in 6 figures of debt, like the complexity of these decisions is so much more amplified, in my opinion, because like once you jump into one of these programs, which you're pretty much forced to, or you're going to pay just a ton of money, there's just so many factors you have to manage.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like when I remember when we play, you know, like you play Mario and you see those memes now, you know, where it's like Mario's got to get through the one level where there's like 40 of those little fireball things coming at him, you know, on the little wheels. It is like that. I feel like, you know, down, up, back, double back, up, jump. Like, how are you going to do this without a software, without a professional holding your hand? You know,
right. So that kind of goes to me of like, you have a software that you put your stuff into.
Yeah.
It's just not you like with a pencil, you know.
Yeah, we had to learn it that way to get our designation. They didn't let us use, they just gave us
no calculators.
Yeah. Once you graduate and pass the exam, then you get the software, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of things there. I think that like if you have the time, you can go on to like the government's website, student loans, and you can start reading all of it. But there's little things like, I mean, do you want to spend, I don't know, 30 hours learning everything and staying on top of it? But also like little nuances of double consolidation. Like I said, for when parents have it, if you have 3 or more loans out there, you can do a double consolidation that opens an entire like 5 more programs you can get on. Otherwise, you're stuck with the ICR, the worst one possible. So there's that. But also on the little things like, you know, if you're a young family, you want to have a child. Well, you get pregnant, you know, the wife gets pregnant. At 6 months, you get to count that child as a dependent. So that lowers your payment. So let's do that. Let's reapply there. And also the nice thing there is too, is if parents out there, we all know, like us advisors, once that baby's born, you ain't getting a whole lot done because your life is turned over and you're busy. So hopefully we get it done. Get
prior
that done.
To that, right.
But also it gives you some window because you've already reapplied because you had to reapply for your new payment.
This is too.
And your budget is going up when the baby is born,
Baby.
Yeah. Exactly.
Aaron, could you walk our listeners through, like, let's just prototype, like, I don't know, 2 or 3, senior in college, whether it's a parent or the student listening, you got a senior in college, there's a bill coming due, can you walk our listeners through, like, hey, when should you really start? Like, what are the sunsetting dates? You kind of just alluded to that with the pregnancy example. And then vice versa, like maybe somebody who's been graduated for 6 months to a year, and then maybe like 3 to 5 years, out of college.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sooner the better, right? You do have you have a few months, 6 months after you graduate, before you have to start making payments. Now, if knowing that plan and getting on there as soon as possible, if this is the best route for you, is always great, because like it's a time clock, right? Like you have to make those payments, 240 payments or 120 payments. So sooner the better, always. Now, with that, you have to have an income. So if you just graduated and you don't have a job yet, it's really hard to like kind of play that off, because maybe you have, $60,000 in student loans and you're just graduating. It's like, well, okay, well, if you go into a job making $70,000, this isn't going to work.
Yes.
So, but on the same point, it also depends on your career, right? Like doctors, man, you're in your practicum, like making very little money, like compared to what you're going to make. Get that program going right now as you're in your practicum, get that clock running while you're not making as much. And so then you're saving a lot more money there, instead of getting on a program once, you're done, you graduated, you're a surgeon, and now you're making all kinds of money. It's like,
get on this as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because you were telling me before you even get into like postgraduate school, or you start doing your practice, whatever you're doing, like that might be the time to do it, because you don't have that much income. So start the clock now.
Yeah. For the doctors and like those people that have like, and I'm not an expert on like doctors or all these people that get like, I know like doctors have to go do their practicum. If you're a surgeon, you have to practice for a while before you actually get fully licensed and you're free to go. That's when it's time to get on.
Yeah.
So it really saves you a ton more money that way. And like most of these surgeons, unless you're like, it's a family trait or a family thing to do is become a doctor and it's getting paid for, you're going to come out with a ton of student loans.
Right.
And if you can get the clock going and you can stick with a state hospital, for the rest of the time, for the next, how many ever payments you have left, then you're down to 120 payments instead of 240 or more.
That's great. Okay. So here's another thing too. Like you do usually charge $1,500 to do the college planning.
Yep.
But we do have a different way that they can pay, and it's cheaper.
Yes.
And we think it's probably a little bit better win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
So if you're just a client, if you're going to be a client of ours, of the firms, then it's going to be the normal $1,000, or you pay monthly, on that. And the student loans is included, because now we're looking at your entire financial life, and we're going to help you all the way through. You've jumped on the bandwagon, and you're going to be an uncommon client for the next. Hopefully, we can help serve you your entire life. So that's where it's cheaper, just because we're going to be working with you ongoing and multiple works. So yes, it's cheaper, but then we're also helping you build wealth and live your dreams and things like that. So it's not cheaper in the long run, but it's cheaper just for a financial.
Right. And then to be able to have that annual meeting to make sure you're still in the right program, you're filing what you need to be filing.
Yeah.
It's a huge benefit. So anyway, if this is resonating with you, or you are like, oh man, that sounds like me, or sounds like a friend of mine, like I do think this is a huge value and potential, a great investment for not only, you, but maybe a friend of yours. And if you can wipe out hundreds, $1,000 of the student loan that you thought you were going to be paying with, like, sign me up.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is really neat about Uncommon Wealth is like, we don't really care what your goals are, your dreams are for your finances. We just want to help you expedite those and get those done faster.
100%.
So that's what we do. Brian, your closing thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think is just from the couples that I've seen Arron work with, and thinking back to that age, I had my daughter when I was like 26, my first child, and just the weight of being married, the weight of having, you want to buy a house, you want to, maybe have children, and, with both spouses coming out with a literal financial noose around your neck with, 50, 150, 250. I mean, we've seen couples up to $800,000 in student loan debt coming out of college, married couples. Like the weight of that, trying to start a family in this day and age. And so I can't help but think like this is one of the healthiest things you could do. I mean, whether you're married or not, but especially if you're married and you both have student loan debt, like getting this, shored up and having a plan that you're unified in. I can't think of a better investment in your marriage and your relationship than figuring this out if that's your situation.
Right.
100%.
So we always say we have kind of a tagline. We actually wrote a book about it. You are your best asset. And sometimes it means that like your college can be planned for paying it off differently. But like you are still your best asset. The education that you got in your college, like don't beat yourself up for it. But having a plan, we've seen whether you have student loans, whether you're going to start a business, whether you're going to, want to plan for amazing retirement, like having a plan, it starts with that. It's just the whole thing starts with the plan. Now, then it also helps to have advisors or people to hold you accountable to the plan or people to help you navigate when you hit a rough patch. But we really do feel like you're your best asset, and whatever things you have in front of you, we'd love to talk to you. Arron, great job at passing the test, because you and me are not the best test takers, but you stayed disciplined, you got through it. And I think it is a huge value to other people. Again, if you have any questions for Arron Cramer, you can get a hold of him at uncommonwealth.com. And what else do I want to say?
I mean, if you just want coffee, I'll buy coffee. I love coffee. So like, I'll even buy it and we can talk about it. It's good. We're here for you guys.
For sure. All right, Brian, close us out, big dog.
Well, this has been the Uncommon Life Project podcast. I've been your host, Brian. I was about to say Philip Ramsey. I've been your host, Brian Dewhurst.
And I've been Philip Ramsey.
I thought Arron was going to go. Man, that was a big whiff.
I thought I was doing the guest thing.
Good.
I was like,
so good.
Okay.
And Arron Cramer.
There it
Thank
is.
you. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Go be uncommon.
Goodbye.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.